I don't know who this is for today, but somebody needs to hear this. You have been crying out to God, asking, why am I here? Why this person? Why this pain? But what if I told you God put you in that situation? God doesn't place his people in comfortable, easy situations where everything flows without resistance. He sends them into places where his light is desperately needed. And sometimes that means you find yourself in the life of a narcissist, someone who thrives in control, manipulation, and selfishness. But what if I told you that your presence in their life is not a mistake? You are not there to be consumed by the darkness. You are there to shine in it. When light enters a dark room, it doesn't have to announce itself. It doesn't have to argue with the darkness or prove that it's stronger. It simply shines, and in doing so, it exposes everything hidden. That's what your presence does in the life of a narcissist. It exposes what they've spent years covering up: pain, insecurity, brokenness, and an identity that's been built on falsehood. You are a mirror to what they refuse to see. That's why they push back. That's why they try to diminish you, control you, twist your words, and make you question your reality. Because the presence of truth unsettles those who have built their lives on deception. But being light isn't just about exposing the darkness in others. It's about holding on to your identity even when you feel surrounded by manipulation and gaslighting. It's about refusing to shrink yourself to fit into their distorted world. It's about standing firm in who God says you are, no matter how many times they try to redefine you. The enemy wants you to believe that the problem is you, that if you were just more agreeable, more compliant, or less sensitive, things would be peaceful. But peace that comes from suppressing who God made you to be is not peace at all. It's bondage. There is something about the light that frustrates those who dwell in darkness. They may try to dim it, but they cannot erase it. And sometimes your presence will awaken something in them that they don't even understand. They may fight against you, but deep down they recognize that you have something they don't. The kindness they can't manipulate. The love they can't earn. The joy that doesn't depend on their approval. The peace that remains even when they do everything to unsettle you. That's not weakness. That's power. God didn't place you in their life to be swallowed by their dysfunction. He placed you there to be an example of something different. And no, that doesn't mean you're responsible for fixing them, changing them, or saving them. You are simply called to be who you are, to be the light, to walk in truth, to set boundaries, to love from a place of strength and not fear. And whether or not they change, your assignment is the same: to remain who God called you to be. You may feel weary. You may feel drained from the constant battle of trying to explain yourself, defend yourself, or simply exist in a space that doesn't recognize your worth. But let me remind you, light does not have to fight to be seen. It just shines. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand in the truth of who you are, knowing that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. Because when you walk in that truth, no amount of manipulation, control, or deception can take away what God has placed inside you. Fire has a way of revealing what is real and what is not. It burns away the things that were never meant to last, the things that were never meant to define you, and the things that have been holding you back. When God allows you to walk through the fire of a difficult relationship, especially with a narcissist, He is not doing it to destroy you. He is doing it to refine you. There is something inside of you that needs to be strengthened, purified, and prepared for what He has in store for you. And sometimes that preparation comes through pain. The enemy wants you to believe that this fire is meant to break you. He wants you to think that you are being punished, that you are stuck, that you will never be free from the cycle of confusion and exhaustion. But God is not a God of destruction. He is a God of transformation. And when He allows the fire, it is never without purpose. Gold is refined in fire. Silver is purified in intense heat. And just like them, you are being refined in ways you may not even realize right now. This season of your life is revealing things about you that you wouldn't have seen in comfort. It's showing you where your strength comes from. It's teaching you that your worth is not defined by the approval of someone who cannot love you the way you deserve. It's forcing you to let go of the need to fix, the need to be understood, the need to prove yourself. Because the more you try to hold on to things that are not meant for you, the more the fire will burn. God is calling you to release, to surrender, to trust Him in the process. The fire is also burning away false identities. Maybe you have spent years believing that you are only valuable when you are serving others, when you are keeping the peace, when you are making someone else happy. But God is showing you that your value is not in what you do for someone who refuses to see your worth. It is in who He created you to be. This fire is stripping away the lies you have believed about yourself, the labels that have been placed on you, the fear that has kept you small. It doesn't feel good in the moment. It hurts to have your heart exposed. It hurts to realize that the love you have poured out so freely has not been received in the way you intended. It hurts to wake up every day wondering if you are the problem, if you are the one who needs to change, if you are the reason for the chaos. But this fire is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to refine you. It is meant to make you stronger, more discerning, more confident in who God says you are. Every time you choose to stand in the truth instead of falling into manipulation, you are being refined. Every time you refuse to let someone else's opinion define your worth, you are being purified. Every time you walk away from the need to prove yourself, to be validated, to gain approval from someone who thrives on control, you are becoming more of who you were created to be. This fire is not your enemy. It is your transformation. And though it feels like you are being consumed, what is actually happening is that everything that is not from God is being burned away so that only what is pure, what is true, and what is powerful remains. There comes a point when you realize that love without boundaries is not love at all, it's captivity. God never intended for you to lose yourself trying to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it. He never designed you to sacrifice your peace in exchange for temporary acceptance. And He certainly didn't place you in the life of a narcissist so that you could be drained, manipulated, and broken beyond recognition. He put you there to learn how to stand, how to set boundaries, and how to walk in the strength He placed inside of you. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign of knowing who you are. When you allow someone to repeatedly cross your lines, diminish your voice, and control your emotions, you are not walking in love, you are walking in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. But fear is not your portion. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. A sound mind means knowing when to say no. It means recognizing manipulation for what it is and refusing to engage in cycles that leave you depleted. It means understanding that you are not responsible for healing someone who refuses to see their own wounds. Strength is not found in how much you can endure. It is found in knowing when to walk away. It is found in trusting that you don't have to beg for love, earn validation, or fight for someone to treat you with respect. Strength is found in silence when the argument is designed to provoke you. It is found in choosing peace over chaos, even when chaos is what you've been conditioned to accept. It is found in understanding that your worth does not decrease just because someone else refuses to acknowledge it. Somewhere along the way, you may have been told that setting boundaries makes you selfish, that standing up for yourself is unkind, that saying no is unchristian. But God Himself sets boundaries. He separates light from darkness. He calls His people to be set apart. He doesn't allow Himself to be mocked or manipulated. And if the Creator of the universe does not allow Himself to be mistreated, why should you? You were never meant to be anyone's emotional punching bag. You were never created to be a doormat for someone else's insecurity. Every time you let go of the need to please, you step deeper into freedom. Every time you refuse to let someone guilt you into compliance, you become stronger. Every time you recognize manipulation for what it is and refuse to engage, you reclaim the power that God already placed inside of you. And that power does not come from human approval. It does not come from keeping the peace at the cost of your own well-being. It comes from knowing that your identity is rooted in Christ, not in how well you can keep someone else happy. Walking in strength doesn't always feel strong in the moment. Sometimes it feels like loss. It feels like loneliness. It feels like walking away from everything familiar. But what if the loneliness is actually God's protection? What if the loss is actually a gain? What if the thing you are most afraid to let go of is the very thing keeping you from stepping into the life God has for you? You don't need permission to take care of yourself. You don't need approval to protect your heart. You don't need to justify your decision to walk in peace. You were never called to live in bondage. You were called to walk in truth, in strength, and in the unwavering confidence of knowing that you are already enough with or without their validation. When God places you in the life of a narcissist, it is not because he wants you to suffer, but because he knows that your presence will reveal something deeper, something they have spent their entire lives avoiding. You see, a narcissist builds their world around a carefully constructed illusion. They create an image of strength, confidence, and control, but beneath that facade, something far more fragile. Insecurity, fear, a deep, unresolved brokenness that they have buried so far beneath layers of manipulation and arrogance that even they refuse to acknowledge it. And then you come along, you with your genuine love, you with your kindness, you with your ability to see past the surface into something real. Your presence does something they never expected. It exposes what they have worked so hard to hide. And that exposure terrifies them, because when someone has built their entire identity on deception, the truth becomes their greatest threat. They have spent years mastering the art of control, twisting reality to fit their narrative, making sure that no one ever gets close enough to see what's really underneath. But you, just by being who you are, disrupt that carefully managed illusion. This is why they react the way they do. It's why they try to tear you down, why they gaslight you, why they rewrite history to make themselves the victim. It's not because you are weak or unworthy. It's because your presence is a mirror that forces them to confront the things they have long since buried. And they don't want to see it. They don't want to acknowledge that their need for control is rooted in fear. They don't want to face the truth that their manipulation is a symptom of their own brokenness. They don't want to admit that the reason they constantly seek validation, admiration, and power is because deep down they feel empty. Instead of dealing with that emptiness, they project it onto you. They convince themselves that the problem is not within them, it's within you. You're too emotional. You're too needy. You're the one who is always overreacting. But the truth is, your emotions make them uncomfortable because they lack the ability to process their own. Your love frustrates them because they don't know how to receive it without feeling exposed. Your honesty unnerves them because it threatens the false reality they have built. They have spent their whole lives running from the truth, and yet when they look at you, they see a reflection of everything they are trying to escape. That's why the cycle is so exhausting. You are trying to love them, and they are trying to reject the very thing they need the most. You are trying to communicate, and they are twisting your words to protect themselves. You are trying to bring healing, and they are doing everything they can to avoid it. Because healing would require vulnerability, and vulnerability would require them to admit that they are not who they pretend to be. And to a narcissist, that is the greatest threat of all. But here's the truth: you were never meant to fix them. You were never meant to convince them to see what they refuse to acknowledge. Your role was never to sacrifice yourself trying to force them to heal. You were placed in their life as a light, but it is up to them whether or not they choose to see. Some will fight against the truth till their last breath. Others may wake up years from now and finally realize what you were trying to show them. But their healing is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain who God created you to be, no matter how much they try to distort that reflection. There comes a moment when you realize that what you thought was a battle for love, for understanding, for healing, was actually a battle for your freedom. You didn't come into this situation expecting war, but somewhere along the way you found yourself fighting for peace that never seemed to last, for clarity that always turned into confusion, for a version of love that never truly felt like love at all. And now, after everything you've endured, you are standing at a crossroads. One road leads to defeat, where you stay bound in a cycle of manipulation, doubt, and exhaustion. The other leads to deliverance, where you finally step into the freedom that was yours all along. Defeat whispers that you have wasted too much time, that you have invested too much, that you are too broken to start again. It tells you that if you had just tried harder, prayed harder, loved harder, things would have been different. It makes you question your strength, your worth, your sanity. It wants you to believe that walking away is failure, that setting boundaries is selfish, that choosing yourself is somehow wrong. But God did not call you to live in defeat. He did not call you to stay in a situation where your soul is slowly being drained, where your spirit is constantly being torn down, where your identity is being reshaped into something He never intended for you to be. Deliverance doesn't always come the way you expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of unanswered prayers, closed doors, and relationships that crumble no matter how hard you try to hold them together. Sometimes it comes through pain, through disappointment, through a breaking so deep that you have no choice but to surrender. And in that surrender, you begin to realize that what you thought was love was actually bondage. What you thought was your responsibility was never yours to carry. What you thought was rejection was actually God's protection. The enemy wanted you to believe that leaving meant losing. That if you walked away, you would never find something better. That if you let go, you would regret it. But the enemy is a liar. Because on the other side of this battle is something greater than you can even imagine. Peace that isn't dependent on someone else's mood. Love that doesn't require you to shrink yourself to be accepted. Joy that isn't clouded by constant anxiety. Strength that isn't wrapped in the fear of losing someone who was never meant to have that kind of power over you. Deliverance is not just about walking away from something, it's about walking into something better. It's about reclaiming your mind, your heart, your purpose. It's about stepping into the version of yourself that God intended before life. Pain and people tried to convince you that you were less than who He created you to be. It's about knowing that you are not defined by what someone else did to you, by how they treated you, by what they refused to see in you. You are defined by who God says you are, and He calls you chosen, loved, redeemed, and free. This is not your defeat. This is your deliverance. The chains that once held you no longer have power here. The voices that once made you question yourself no longer have authority. The confusion, the fear, the exhaustion, none of it belongs to you anymore. You have been set free, and who the Son sets free is free indeed. You don't have to wait for their apology. You don't have to wait for closure. You don't have to wait for permission to heal. Your freedom has already been paid for. Now all you have to do is walk in it. Pain has a way of making you question everything. It makes you wonder why God allowed it, why you had to go through it, why the people you love the most were the ones who hurt you, the ones. It feels unfair, like a weight you never asked to carry, a battle you never signed up for. And when you're in the middle of it, when the wounds are still fresh and the memories still haunt you, it's hard to see anything good coming from it. But what if I told you that your pain has a purpose? That God is not wasting a single tear, a single sleepless night, a single moment of heartache. That what the enemy meant for your destruction, God is using for your transformation. The enemy wants you to believe that your pain is pointless. He wants you to believe that it was all for nothing, that you were just a victim of circumstance, that you'll never heal, never move on, never be whole again. He wants you to sit in your suffering and believe that this is the end of your story. But God doesn't work like that. He is a God of redemption, of restoration, of resurrection. He takes what was meant to break you and uses it to build you. He takes what was meant to silence you and turns it into your testimony. He takes what was meant to destroy you and makes it the very thing that propels you into your purpose. You may not see it right now, but every bit of pain you have walked through is shaping you into the person God created you to be. It is sharpening your discernment, strengthening your faith, deepening your compassion. It is teaching you who you are, and more importantly, who God is. It is revealing to you that your worth is not dependent on who accepts or rejects you, that your strength is not measured by how much you can endure, but by how much you are willing to surrender. It is stripping away the false identities, the need for approval, the fear of being alone, and replacing it with something real, something unshakable. You are not the same person you were before the pain. You see things differently now. You love differently. You trust differently. You understand things you never would have understood if life had been easy, if people had always been kind, if every door had opened without resistance. And as much as you may wish you could erase the past, deep down you know that the fire refined you, that the breaking led to rebuilding, that the loss led to growth. That even in the moments where it felt like God was silent, He was working all things together for your good. The pain was never about punishment. It was about preparation for the people you are called to reach. Preparation for the places God is leading you. Preparation for the purpose He has placed inside of you. Because there is someone out there who needs your story, someone who needs to hear how you survived. Someone who needs to know that healing is possible, that freedom is real, that God is still in the business of turning pain into purpose. The enemy tried to use your pain to destroy you, but God is using it to equip you. And one day, the very thing that once made you weep will be the thing that allows you to minister to others. The very thing that tried to steal your voice will be the platform God uses to make sure you are heard.